Hi guys, it's Laura and today is yet again another Top 5 Wednesday. So this week's Top 5 Wednesday is the top 5 books you didn't think you'd enjoy but you actually really did. This Top 5 Wednesday for me, I had several books that came to mind, so I found this a lot easier than last week's. I think this is a really good topic because a lot of the time you end up judging a book before you even start reading it. So the first book I'm going to start off with today is a book that I've talked about a couple of times before, and that is Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. Now, I didn't think I'd enjoy this at all. I thought it was going to be very cliche, overhyped, and just a really cheesy love story. And in honesty, it was all of those, maybe not the overhyped. It was cliche, it was cheesy, however, I thoroughly enjoyed Anna and the French Kiss. The next book is another book I've also talked about recently, and that is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Now, I think this is probably featured in a couple of Top 5 Wednesdays, I'm not entirely sure. This one I picked up, didn't think I'd like, had no idea what it was about, I really didn't. No one kind of talked about exactly what was happening in the story, and I had no idea whether I'd like it or not. I doubted whether the book was worth the hype, and then I started reading it and thoroughly enjoyed this. And yes, I've only read the first one, but I look forward to reading the rest of the series in the future because I was thoroughly surprised and really enjoyed this. Now, the third book I have to share with you guys is another YA book, and that is The Short Second Life of Britannia, an Eclipse novella by Stephanie Meyer or Meyer, whichever way you want to say it. The reason why I didn't think I'd enjoy this book is because after reading Twilight, I first read it, I was 15 I think, and that was like 5 years ago, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved Twilight. Then the films came out and then everyone went really overhyping about it, and then I found myself criticising the book like everyone else was, even though I never decided to reread them. And I picked this one up because I had it for ages and never read it. I think I read it a couple of years ago. Picked it up. I loved it. I enjoyed being back in the Twilight world, and I was surprised to really enjoy this book after telling myself that I didn't like Twilight. But I think Twilight's one of these things that you kind of feel ashamed to talk about and feel ashamed to like, but you know inside your 15-year-old self thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a big thing. And it's still really a big milestone in the book industry, really, and definitely a big milestone in teenage Laura life, because it was one of those books that kind of just made you love reading even more. So yeah, this book really kind of brought me back to the world, and even though I thought I'd hate it, I didn't. I really enjoyed this one. Okay, so the final two books I have for you guys are in fact books that I've been assigned to read, and often when I'm assigned to read a book I don't always look forward to it. That's not always the case, but some of the times when I haven't heard of it, I doubt whether I want to read it or not. And so when I read it and thoroughly enjoy it, that just makes studying them even easier and reading them a hell of a lot more fun. So the first one I want to share with you guys is Small Island by Andrea Levy. Now this one is set in 1948, just after the Second World War, and the story is basically about Jamaican lodgers and all the immigration that happens from the ports in Southampton, where I live, and the immigration and the social conflicts that come with it. I wasn't really sure I'd enjoy this book. I've never really read anything like it before, and if I hadn't really loved it. However, when I read this book, I was thoroughly surprised, thoroughly loved it. Now, the final book I want to share with you guys is The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. Now, this book I read for Victorian Fictions last year, and I didn't really know much about it except it was a detective story, and I actually read this after the week we were supposed to read it, so I was listening to everyone talk about it, but I didn't know anything about the story, and I was very doubtful after hearing kind of snippets of what it is about that I'd like it. However, when I first started it, yeah, I didn't like it at first. In all honesty, I didn't like the book at first. I really struggled to get into it. However, you get past some of the little bit at the beginning, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, I really actually enjoyed this book. It surprised me, and I'm glad I ended up reading it because it is a great fiction, and it's a very important, I think, milestone in like literature. So yeah, I'm really glad I read this and liked it. So that's the end of this week's Top 5 Wednesday. Let me know down below which top 5 books you found that you enjoyed when you didn't think you would. I'll see you next week with another Top 5 Wednesday, and I can't wait to hear your comments.